Hi, all, and welcome back to another episode of There's Danger Here. I'm Leilani, and it is the top of the month, so we're going to have another MMIW episode. And this one, unfortunately, is going to be a lot of names, and that is because there's not a lot of information about them. But I think it's still important to make sure that their names are heard. So let's begin, shall we? Carolyn Connolly was Ojibwe from Curve Lake First Nation. On August 2nd, 2008, at 7:30 a.m., a woman was walking her dog when she found a woman lying in the alley near Shutter and Shearborn. The then 54-year-old Carolyn had been stabbed and beaten. The woman yelled and 911 was called. When police arrived, they attempted to save Carolyn, but she was unfortunately pronounced dead at the scene. Police originally didn't have any identification for her, but fingerprints from a previous robbery she committed provided her with her identification. The police, however, had no leads, and the area was identified as a known area for sex workers. As such, the investigation seemed to end as soon as it began. Her case remains open and unsolved. Cassandra Lalonde Brandy Antoine grew up as the only child of her mother's. She was found by a hiker in Richmond, British Columbia on June 1st, 1997. The then 20-year-old had been burned to death. Cassandra lived in North Vancouver at the time of her death and worked in the sex trade in Vancouver's downtown east side. At the time of her death, she had a 5-month-old baby. And again, like I said before, guys, these cases really have almost no information that I could find on them. So that's all I could find about her. Kathy Lynn Williams was of the First Nations. When she was 7, she was adopted after the murder of her own mother. On August 22nd, 1988, the then 21-year-old left her home in St. Andrews. She headed to Winnipeg to complete a job application, and while in town, decided to visit some friends. She was with an unidentified male friend when she informed him she forgot her purse in another friend's car and had to go and retrieve it, stating she'd be back in about half an hour. Then, nothing. Police did receive a report that she was seen at Santa Lucia and other bars along St. Mary's Road in Winnipeg that evening. But again, nothing of this was confirmed, and it wasn't confirmed if this was before she went to visit her friend or after. One source reported that Kathy was known to have a problem with alcohol. Without any evidence, her case also quickly went cold. In recent years, Project Devote, a joint task force between the Winnipeg Police Service and the RCMP, have taken over her case. But still, it remains open. Cecilia Nicol went to visit her mother in Vancouver on August 1st, 1989, when she was 15 years old. Shortly after her visit, she reportedly began staying on the streets. Her mom says she saw her daughter for the last time in October of 1989. Another family member reported Cecilia moved to Vancouver Island, but that could never be confirmed. The Nicol family had many tragedies. Cecilia's family member, Roberta Nicol, was 19 when she went missing from Surrey, British Columbia in August of 1988. Another cousin, 16-year-old Delphine Nicol, vanished near Smithers, British Columbia on June 13, 1990. All of their cases are unresolved, and they all fall along the Trail of Tears. Cecilia Payesh was living in Red Lake, Ontario in the 50s. On July 1st, 1957, the then 47-year-old, along with her 8-year-old son, Leo Payesh, went missing. According to police, the two are walking along Red Lake Road and have simply never been seen since. Chantel Alice Rose Bushy was born on April 2nd, 1991, to Mother Vivian the second of 4 children, though the eldest was given up for adoption. So in that household, there was only the 3. And she was of the Denetha First Nation. She grew up in Grand Prairie, Alberta. Chantel had a rough childhood. She did suffer from sexual abuse. When she was 11, the 3 children were at a summer event and were riding on a wagon when her younger sister, Summer, fell off and she landed under the wheel. Unfortunately, Summer did not survive. In her teens, Chantel skipped school. She ran away on numerous occasions and was known to associate with drug dealers and prostitutes. Though most reports stated that she didn't have any addiction issues, she just ran with that crowd. At this time, Vivian stated, quote, "I don't know how many times I reported her missing, and the police would catch her, find her, and then they would drive her back home." End quote. When she was out on the streets, she often went by the name Kim Starr. Vivian also reported that after a time, she simply stopped asking for help. All the police could do was bring her home, and then she'd take off again. When Chantel was 15, she became a mother to a little girl, Fatima, briefly getting support from the government. But that didn't last long, and so Vivian filed for custody of the baby, and by 16, Chantel was off again. She was last seen on December 1st, 2007 in Grand Prairie, Alberta. Still, it took until September 2009 for Vivian to file a missing persons report. But again, from her perspective, her child had been leaving and coming back for years, and I'm sure it was a source of constant worry. It sounds like when she could no longer verify Chantel was in Vancouver, that was when she decided enough was enough and filed a report. The city's RCMP detachment is investigating the missing persons case, which was temporarily transferred to the care unit, an RCMP entity that again investigates and reviews files of murdered and missing vulnerable persons throughout Alberta. I've spoken about that before. There have been no developments in the investigation since it was moved to the care unit, and the investigators last connected with Chantel's family in 2012. Quote, "No one ever calls me about Chantel," end quote, said Vivian. About Chantel, her mother went on to say she had amazing drawing skills and was great with math and numbers. Quote, "She was so smart," end quote. Vivian, like so many others, supports the possibility of a federal inquiry into Canada's missing and murdered Indigenous girls and women. And she says, "It's become a priority to teach young girls about the dangers they will encounter as Aboriginal women in the country." Charlene Catholic was born on June 23, 1975, to Father Joe, and was part of the Lutset Dene First Nation in northern Canada. Her mother died of cancer when she was quite young, and her aunt, Lorraine, took over as sort of the mother figure. Charlene loved to watch cartoons and laugh before she went off to school. When she was 15 years old, Charlene took a flight from her home to Yellowknife to attend a Dene National Assembly. On July 21st, she was out with friends in Bechok, deciding in the early morning of the 22nd that she needed to get back to Yellowknife, and after being unable to find a ride with friends, she hitchhiked. A person who knew Joe actually spotted Charlene walking along Highway 3 towards Yellowknife and told her to wait and they'd come back and pick her up. It sounds like their vehicle was already too full, but when they returned, Charlene was gone, and that was the last known sighting of her. Family members say they last spoke with police about her around 2008. Joe stated about the police that he tried to get investigators to continue to search for Charlene Catholic for years, but it was like he was, quote, "talking to a wall. I'm not going to bother them anymore," end quote. A former residential school acquaintance of Joe said they met Charlene before she disappeared, like I said. Still, on June 9th, 2017, The Northwest Territories Supreme Court issued an order stating there were reasonable grounds to presume Charlene was dead, and the RCMP say her case is open and active, but again, obviously, unresolved. Charlene Jenny Masakayesh, 26-year-old, was a mother of 3 young children from Mishkogangamang First Nation in Northern Ontario. Sorry, that is a really hard name. Charnel was known as a funny person and was loving to everyone she knew. She was last seen on Highway 599 south of Pickle Lake and north of Kenora on November 6, 2015, and she was reported missing 2 days later. The Ontario Provincial Police concluded their search in early July of 2016 after they unfortunately found Charnel's remains. The cause of her death is undetermined and her case continues to be investigated by the OPP Criminal Investigation Branch in conjunction with the Office of the Chief Coroner. And that's all I have for you this week. A bunch of names with very unresolved cases for every single one of the ladies I just spoke about. So please, remember, to all those out there listening, be careful. It's a dangerous world we live in.